Home is a place.
No, no, no. Home is a feeling.
Home is my motherland.
It's more where you feel alive and inspired.
Well, I think we're talking about the same thing, aren't we? Home is where our story begins.
What's your story?
Homesick at Home every Friday from 9 to 10 p.m.
On Radio Van 103.1 with Ina MK
and Rina D.
Shot City. I'm coming home again.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Friday night again, and we are here in our studio on Radio Van 103.1 with my lovely colleague Rina D. and...
Good evening, Ina. How are you?
As usual, I'm fine.
Good evening to our listeners. Good evening to our guests.
And this is Homesick at Home, and of course we have a guest tonight. Doctor of Political Science, political analyst, Hayk Martirosyan. Good evening.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, we're fine. Are you comfortable there on our red
Absolutely.
sofa? Red couch. So, how are you? Did you have some time to rest?
Not really. Still recovering.
Not yet.
You,
we hope.
you look kind of tired.
Yeah,
Yes.
I do. I know.
Okay, we will have to warn you. No yes or no answers.
Okay.
Just as usual. Long analysis as usual. And so let's start from the very beginning with the first question. Introducing yourself, your birthplace, education, and coming to Armenia, living in Armenia.
Shall I do that myself?
Yes.
Okay. So I was born here in Yerevan, Armenia. I went to Yerevan State University, got my bachelor's degree, then master's degree. Then I got a DEA degree, which is actually sort of something similar to PhD in Paris. From Sorbonne. Then later on I went to do my doctorate degree there.
Mm-hmm.
So I got my doctorate degree from Paris as well. And I've been pretty active in Armenian public life since I was a student. And here we are.
And here we are.
Why politics?
I know, it has been a passion forever. And I cannot explain why exactly, but it has been something that has attracted me always. And at some point, I believe in early 2000s, I decided I want to kind of switch from being a historian to being a political scientist and analyst, because I was really fascinated by politics. So that's when I made the decision to get involved in political science, political analysis, politics in general.
Interesting. If there were a word that you would replace politics with, what would it be?
Life. Politics is life. It concerns everybody's lives. It is part of everybody's life. So, yeah, it runs through our lives. To the end, has an impact on everybody, one way or another. So yes, probably life.
Okay, for our English speakers, our listeners, our audience, and also a lot of people who have been asking so many times, what has happened in Armenia? What is happening over there? We have a lot of information through media, but there are various opinions and views. Can you describe in your vision what happened in Armenia for the past?
Well, I think I need
20.
some time to digest what exactly happened and how it happened, even though I participated in my own way in it. But actually, it's pretty well known by now that we had a revolution here. So the old corrupt government was basically overthrown in an amazing way, in a very constitutional way, under the direct pressure of the people, without any blood, without any victims, without one bullet fired. And that was really, really amazing, considering also the tension that existed throughout the whole revolution. And right now, Armenia is in the process of forming a new government. We know there are several appointments already. All of the appointees are young or very young people. So new blood comes in, new generation takes over, and I guess that's a very good news for this country.
When you say new, what does that mean in terms of experience? Doesn't that count? Isn't it important?
Sometimes experience may become a hurdle. Experience is a very valuable thing, is a very important thing. But sometimes inexperienced people who have brains, who have commitment, who have values, may come in and may change a lot of things towards the good. So I guess in this case, people have experience, the appointees have experience one way or another, even though it might not be a big experience or a huge life experience, but I believe they have experiences of their own, and I would say that we shall wait and see how they work, how they function, how they perform. That is one very important thing.
So this is actually, we are not sure of what's going to happen. We are just waiting to see what will happen.
Well, we know from the words of the Prime Minister throughout the whole revolution what his vision for the country is. So I believe the appointees that just took offices should follow his line. And if they do, we pretty much have a clear idea what's going to happen. So we're going to be having a totally new type of country, a new republic, if we may say so. Therefore, no, we don't know the people exactly, or we don't know much about their experiences or their path past, but we know what their line will be, or their line may be. So in those terms, I don't think that we have much to worry about.
Hayk, in your opinion, what was the main reason that united this many people this time?
Well, this was called a revolution of love, but the uniting thing was hate. And it was the hate towards a very corrupt, a very dictatorial government that was really illegitimate, that had usurped power for many, many years, almost 3 decades, that was exploiting the country and its resources, that wasn't taking into consideration any of the interests of the people, that was totally ignorant and ignoring as well the will of the people. So the breaking point was when the third president, after his second term finished, by lying to the people that he's not going to run again, he had the system changed, he had the constitution changed, and then he decided to go for the third term, basically, which was called this time prime ministership. Mm-hmm. So the moment he became prime minister, it started to become evident that people are not going to tolerate this kind of an indefinite rule, because it was obvious that that person, Ser Sargsyan, was going to rule forever. And it united all the people and hate towards him. So the main motto, the main slogan of the revolution in the very beginning was Mergir Sergin, which means reject Serge. And that is not a motto of love, thankfully. And that is a motto that united all the people. So that's what happened.
So it was majority of love against the minority of hatred. And we have to go on an advertisement break. Stay tuned. This is Homesick at Home, and our guest is political scientist Hayk Martirosyan. Steven's gone. Rafi's gone. Rena, Asa, what am I gonna do?
Well, dear, that's the way men are. Maybe you should try a woman.
What? Rena, kezi çeraf.
Ina, hangızdatsi. I meant as a co-host.
Vay. Homesick at home.
This is how we do it. It's Friday night.
Yeah, this is how we do it on Radio Van 103.1. We are facing a revolution in our studio right now with our dear guest, Hayk. Hayk Martirosyan, and we keep going and continue to ask all our questions that we have saved for you.
But I have a question for you, Ina.
Yeah, go ahead.
How did you manage to invite Hayk, knowing that our show is a non-political show? How did this happen?
There is an exception to any rule, as you have noticed recently. Yeah, but I met Hayk at the Republic Square during one of the protests, and well, he was among my Facebook friends, but I had never seen him in person. So that's how we started to communicate, and I used this opportunity to invite him and also to share with all our English-speaking listeners about the situation here in Armenia, because we had lots of questions. So, Haikjan, a lot of people say and think that it's over, so now everything will be okay and we're heading towards a new reality, etc. Others say that the hardest part is yet to come. So, but what do you have to say about this?
I think, of course, the hardest part is still to come. The real revolution starts only now. The first part was the easiest part, even though it was extremely tough and difficult and risky and unbelievable. But of course, we did it.
So the dragon's level is now.
Yeah, now there is a huge need and, of course, absolute necessity to dismantle the old system, to get rid of the old corrupt people with stained reputations and names, and to start a brand new country, a brand new system, with brand new values. That's what's the most difficult part.
I mean, some people don't believe that this can happen. What do you have to say about this?
Well, so why did we do the revolution then?
I mean,
we did
no,
because
when
we
we
believed
are talking about a non-corrupt.
no, why not? I mean, do you think everybody in Armenia is corrupt? I don't think so. We saw beautiful, unbelievably good youth, young people in the streets of Yerevan. This was a young people as a revolution. It wasn't a revolution of corrupt people. Absolutely young people with totally different mentality and values came out. They started blocking the streets. They were the most active protesters and demonstrators.
Renajan, they're not cowards like you and I, grown up in some different.
No, it's just a thought that I hear going around, so I had to ask the question.
Sure.
Because
No, we have a lot of people, a lot of bright, brilliant young people who are absolutely not corrupt, who don't even have those values, who are idealists, who follow some bright ideas, and the field is open for them. They have to come in. This is their country. They will take over. They will create finally the country that these people really truly deserve, not the one that we had for 30 years that didn't correspond to any Armenian values, just because of a bunch of people who had occupied all the levers of power.
We hear a lot that it's the most important thing is to believe, and all the love and things like this, around this revolution. So I have a question. Do you think there is a space for romanticism in politics?
I guess it was romantic, wasn't it? The revolution, people in the streets, young people were falling in love during the protests. It was filled with adrenaline, with a lot of love. Yeah, of course, it was. I mean, revolutions are a nasty, dirty business, but they may also be very romantic, very emotionally charged, very interesting events for the young people. And this one was more than any other revolution in human history, I believe, because this was so very unique by how it happened, who did it, how we did it. This was unparalleled and unprecedented. Yes, there was and there is some romanticism and romance in it.
So there is a good saying, pardon my language, but at the end of the day, flowers grow even in shit. So
Well, for me, this was. I looked at it from a different point of view because, as a diasporian, I mean, I came to this country believing in this country, believing what I can give, what it can give to me. But the majority of people, I felt and I saw, didn't believe in this country. The people who were born and raised and lived in this country. By saying, Yergire Yergirchi, this country is not a country. But somehow, all of a sudden, I saw these people on the streets believing in what they had and demanding for much more. The question I want to ask you, in your opinion, was one person the cause of all this?
No, of course not. And let me differ from what you said. Actually, people believed in the country. That's why the revolution happened. And people always believed in the country. And people loved the country. People didn't believe in the state. People didn't believe in the government. And let's not mix the state with the country and even the society with the nation or with the people. These are very different things. So people loved the country and you loved the country with no difference from others. That's why you moved here. And that's why people rose to do the revolution. The state was a disaster. It still is in shambles, but it's going to be repaired. The government was a big disaster for almost 30 years, 27 years to be exact. And if there was no belief in the country itself, nobody would do this. Everybody would just leave, shut the door, turn off the lights and forget. Many people did that, but the core and the youth didn't. Now, that's a very, very important distinction. What was the second part of your question?
I was asking what was the cause of this revolution? Was it one person
it
that
wasn't,
awakened?
No, well, one person awakened, but it wasn't done for one person or for one person's sake. You know, we're not this is not a country that may fall for one person and create a cult out of that person. No. That person was extremely courageous, came up with an unbelievably well-crafted strategy, and believed in what he wanted to do, and made others believe. And the crowds grew gradually. And at some point, it just became really big. So the thing is that the historic moment was right. The third president, by being extremely greedy and power-hungry and almost crazy, did what he did, went for the third term, while doing that employed deception techniques, and people were fed up. People had kept silent for a long time now, and here comes Nikol Pashinyan, a young, famous former reporter, journalist, editor-in-chief, and then a politician, member of the parliament, who galvanizes the people, who is unstoppable in what he believes in, and he fills the Republic Square up to the core, and then people start believing in him and follow him. And he came up with this decentralized system of bringing the government down, which was actually an unprecedented thing in this country.
So this was just the last drop of the in the glass, and we were
Of
just,
patience.
yeah, and we were just lucky enough to witness it, actually. Hayk John, Nikol Pashinyan has mentioned numerous times that there will be no vendetta for the previous government, against the previous government. Is there justice without vendetta?
Of course. Vendetta is a personal, private, low-level so-called justice, which is not justice at all sometimes. What is a vendetta? It's an Italian word, and it's usually used in conjunction with topics that, concern mafia.
The mafia.
Italian mafia. So we're not a mafia. This is not a country of mafia people. This is not a criminal society. And of course, a normal, extremely civilized society, as we saw it, as we witnessed it, cannot get involved in vendettas. There are going to be no vendettas, and no vendettas should be tolerated. But justice is different. Justice is a legal thing that should be applied to everybody. So I do believe that there is going to be a justice. There is going to be justice. There is going to be a just process, a due process for those who deserve to go through the justice system. We shall see how these things happen. We shall see who goes. We shall see what kind of cases are opened. But justice is absolutely necessary to restore people's trust in the government, in the country, and in the future. Also, because if you forgive everybody and everything, that means people may commit crimes today with hopes that tomorrow's government is not going to punish them, or today's government is not going to punish them. No, the punishment should be just and in legal framework only.
By the way, we spoke about the diaspora earlier, and what would you say to diaspora right now who are listening to us, following us in social media, and also thinking of coming back or doing some investments in our country?
First of all, diaspora is not one single unified entity, unfortunately. It's a very divided structure. It's not even a structure in many places. And there is the old diaspora, so-called classical diaspora, the descendants of those who found refuge in foreign countries after the Armenian genocide, in the aftermath of the Armenian genocide. And there is the new diaspora, which consists almost entirely of the Armenians from Armenia, the Hayastansis. So we saw that the Hayastansis were very active during this revolution because they had the sense of what's going on in Armenia. They were fed up, and most of them had left because of the corrupt system that we had here. Now, the old diaspora, curiously enough, behaved in a mostly, I don't want to generalize, but mostly in a shameful way. They kept silent, they were ignorant, they had no clue what's going on, and again, there were big exceptions, but still exceptions. The rule was that mostly they kept silent and they were trying to figure out what's happening, or they knew that the government is corrupt, but they didn't want to intervene, or they didn't want to take part, or they thought, because you see, there is one big problem with old classical diaspora elites, I would say. And again, I believe this is elites, or most of the elites of the old classical diaspora. They were corrupt in a way themselves by the Armenian authorities of the time. Because of the medals they were receiving, because of the reception dinners, because of the photo ops, because of the connections, and they were feeling so important by having a photo with a president, with a prime minister, you know, by being received by them, by participating in galas or gatherings or whatever. You see, so there is this type of elite group of people who actually didn't care what the government is, who the government was. They knew, but they didn't care. Now, these people and people who had the same mentality, probably not the same opportunities, but the same mentality, or who were detached from Armenia, stayed silent. They didn't participate. But we saw an awakening now coming from Hayastansis, and then it transferred to the old classical diaspora as well. And mostly young diasporans who also have different values from the old classical diaspora elites. Okay? Now, how many diasporan big benefactors, big businessmen, famous community leaders came up with something, with words, with support for the people of Armenia, because it was about people of Armenia, right? I would say one. Plus two, the two are Ruben Vartayan and Nubar Afeyan from Russia and US, Canada, respectively. But they were heavily involved in Armenia, so You cannot call them really diasporans in classical sense. Ruben Vartanyan is from Russia. The first speech they had or release was pretty soft, mild. And then they congratulated Nikol Pashinyan, which was a pretty long text, but good. It showed some involvement, right? And the second one was Garo Armen from New York, who came up even before the fall of Serge Sarkisyan. And having created this huge organization in Armenia, he was basically the only one in the whole diaspora who understood or who had courage to go against the actual government and express his support for the people. So these things are shameful in a sense that in this huge diaspora, we only had 1 or 3 diasporan leaders, community leaders or big businessmen who actually said something. So where were the rest? Oh yeah, now the congratulations poured in. You know, that's easy to congratulate the winner. It's extremely difficult to support those who are still in struggle, who are still fighting an actual government in power, in the office. So there is a big thing, a big topic to think about. Now, I'm really hopeful that the Hayastansis and the young generation of the classical diasporans will make a huge shift. And answering to your question, I believe that there is such a high level of enthusiasm in diaspora that people are going to actually be coming to Armenia to install themselves here, to find a home here, to start businesses, because this is going to be, in my belief, a totally different and a brand new country. And I believe that this revolution was also a catalyst for the diasporans in sleep, if we may say so, to get more active, to wake up, and to get really attached to their historic homeland.
Thank you. Wow. Hayk. Okay. How would you evaluate our Prime Minister's social media activeness?
Well, the activities are pretty impressive. No, it's pretty impressive, right? Who of you has ever said the presidential office? I mean, he did a tour, right? A live tour in a room that actually, you might not know this, had actually, according to some information, no Wi-Fi in it. So the old president was so old in his soul that he didn't use internet usually. Okay? So Pashinyan was using GSM networks, as far as I'm concerned. That's what I heard. Okay? So you got a tour, you get live reports from him, and it's pretty lively, it's pretty good, pretty impressive. There is a connection between the leader of the country and the people now. And there is a sense of responsibility on his part, that's my feeling. And people respond to that. And his Facebook page has been the most popular Facebook page in Armenia during the revolution, and still is, I believe.
Still is, yeah.
And still is.
Exactly.
And everybody was checking his Facebook page to see if it's a working day or not. So, yeah, I mean, come on. For the first time in this country's history, we have a leader
who is loved,
who actually communicates with youth and who uses pretty advanced social media tools. Yeah. Well, of course, unfortunately, Twitter is very passive in Armenia. People don't use Twitter. But it will come as well, I guess.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Hayk, Armenia today versus Armenia tomorrow.
Well, today we still have a country in transition. Tomorrow's Armenia, I guess, is going to be stronger. There are going to be different kind of challenges, of course, a very tough type of challenges. But people who are determined to survive will survive and shall survive. And it's tomorrow's Armenia is Armenia filled with hope and light. Yesterday's Armenia was a very dark place, a very depressive place. Today's Armenia is a hopeful place. And tomorrow's Armenia should be a place where the hopes came to be. I guess that's the definition.
And I have a question. Okay, we saw and followed and read throughout the whole process all your posts and your opinions and analysis. And did you ever have doubts about sharing your analytical thoughts with and opinions with the public, knowing the way of your influence on your followers, and because of the responsibility?
Uh,
Did you have these moments of
Doubting what I
doubts
say?
no doubts of whether it is worth to share it right now with people or not?
Well, I thought twice before hitting the share button, but if I had doubts, I didn't share. If there was something questionable, I didn't share. I didn't write.
What was it?
But no, I had no doubts. Why would I have any doubts about what I believe in? Because this was a struggle that I deeply believed in. This was kind of a life commitment and a life dream coming true. A single, unique opportunity to play a part in something bigger than any of us, and to do a life-changing thing according to your capacity or ability. No, I had absolutely convinced in everything that I did, and there was a point, I guess it was 25th, when I was extremely active and extremely, I would say even reckless in the struggle against the counter-revolution that was brewing at that point. Reckless in a sense that if the counter-revolution succeeded, I would encounter a pretty bitter end, I would say. But no, I didn't doubt even that. And I believed in what I was doing. And I believe that people felt it, sensed it. And
I was sometimes torturing you as well.
no, it's okay. It's okay. I appreciated your messages. There was not one single instance when I had doubt whether I'm doing right or not. I was always absolutely convinced that what I do is the right thing to do.
Great. Braveheart. Hayk the Braveheart.
The main
Go
reason you believed in a revolution as a politician and as a human, a citizen.
Look, I thought that there is no way this country is going to be any worse if the revolution succeeds, which is true. This country was at a brink of a total, absolute, major disaster from which it wouldn't be able to recover. So my belief was this is a once in a lifetime chance to bring change to this country. And it really was. It really was for everybody, for each of us. That's why almost everybody was in the streets. Almost everybody. So this is something that we have waited for almost 3 decades. How would you not believe in the necessity of doing this? Because all the ways have been explored and have been proven unviable to bring change to this country. The only thing was by the masses of the people. And that's what happened.
Hayk, do you consider Nicole a God-chosen person, as a lot of people say? Like a messiah?
God-chosen?
Yeah.
People's chosen.
Oh, no, come on. I mean, we shouldn't be creating cult personalities or, demigods or, semi-gods. No, I mean, Nikol Pashinyan is a human being, a pretty smart one, an extremely courageous one. We should give him credit for that. A believer, and we may say he was probably the only person who, on day one, believed in his mission. Day two, others joined, his teammates and etc. Some other people joined later on, at later stages. But he had this charisma. He had this vision. He did it. Well, let's give him credit for that.
Ooh, he did
But
it.
let's not make gods out of simple people. Pashinyan had this political genius in him. He did it. He may fail in the future. He may commit mistakes in the future.
Of course.
Everybody, all of us are humans, and we may do these things. But you know who doesn't commit mistakes? God. So he's not a god. He's just a leader, a very talented leader, a bright mind, who's leading this country. And I hope we all wish him good and great success in his job.
Yeah, speaking of making mistakes, what would you advise as a politician or as a smart person to these people who are just sitting there and waiting for him to make a mistake, so they start to discuss, start to, try to break us, the people who believed in everything, and saying, aha, I told you, this is going to happen.
Listen, people have elected him, basically. Have elected him in the streets, have elected him in the square, have elected him in the parliament, right? Mm-hmm. Now, let the person work. Let him work.
Thank you.
Because, if we start criticizing from day one, what are we going to achieve? Let him work. If he fails, if he commits grave mistakes, and that's an if he does all these things, I believe a system is going to be in place by that time to replace the leader of the country with another one, without a revolution. This was a legal revolution, but there are other paths now. There are going to be other paths to replace the government and the prime minister, and that's the elections. So the people will have a chance, an opportunity to replace a prime minister they no longer wish to have in the office through the elections. And that's going to be the biggest investment of Nikol Pashinyan in all of this business, in all of this affair, to establish a just and a clean system that will function properly according to all the rules of democracy.
And also citizenship activeness, involvement in everything.
Yeah, now we have young and active citizenship. Citizens, young people, who know their rights and who already saw and know that they can change power.
So
that's very
just
important.
Stay patient, trust the person, and in case anything, be involved, be active, right? Am I saying everything right?
Well, we should give the person some time at least.
Of course. Okay.
To see what he does, because people have trusted him. Now, you trust him and then you start distrusting immediately. Makes no sense, right? So, people should let him work.
That's why I say
and then judge slowly, but surely, and see what comes out. If it works, it works. If not, people should put their demands forward.
Okay. Another question that I feel I have to ask, although we tried to answer it in many different other ways. People were out on the streets. They were asking for change. This was the beginning, the start of a change. But if we delve very deep, are we really ready for change? And what kind of change are we talking about?
Why not? Are we barbarians not to be ready for change? Of course, people are ready for change. People are changing. The country has already changed. The society has changed. We had a sleeping society for many, many years, a society that was asleep, a society that was somehow degraded, and then suddenly, in this one single month, the society transformed itself and transitioned from sleep into total awakeness and awareness. So change happens to these people, good change, pretty fast. Now, the Armenian society shall move forward, and of course Armenians are ready for change. Armenians asked for change, and Armenians got the change and the changes. Now, bigger changes are coming, and people should push for more changes. The start has been there already. People in the country have started. And I'm absolutely convinced there is going to be more and more change.
I mean, looking back, realizing that this country was in sleep mode after it was in a post-Soviet era for so long.
No, it was in Soviet era, I would say, not post-Soviet. It was post-Soviet visually and design-wise, but it was in Soviet. Look who was leading the country, a Soviet mentality having guy.
Yes.
Who was actually not even Soviet Armenian, who had this Soviet Azerbaijani mentality, which is actually different from Armenian mentality, right? So he ruled the country for 10 years, and 20 years before that he was heavily involved in the Armenian politics and top levels and etc. That's why the country stagnated. That's why a person who couldn't read a word in English, who couldn't speak normal Russian even, who would only speak half Armenian and the half nothing, and who would speak this, ridiculous stuff sometimes. How could this kind of a person have any idea what change is, what modern times is, what's happening in the world, if you don't read the news in at least one foreign language, and if you don't really use internet? I mean, do you imagine 2018? 2018.
That's why he thought that we were 7%.
And he believed that actually the opposition that they gave 7% to, not the whole, he believed that the people are the 7%. Well, the 7% turned out to be more than 77%. Turned out to be actually 100%. And that's also the tragedy that this country was in. So, yeah, a guy having a Soviet communist past was still in power, a totally backwards thinking, stagnated guy who had created this big legend about himself that he's a genius, he's a chess player, and etc. Give me a break. We saw what kind of chess player he was on the stage when he came to negotiate with Nikol Pashinyan and failed spectacularly in almost less than 1 minute. And disgraced himself, ran away. I mean, it was a total disgrace. That was the true leader of the country at that point. The true him, not the legend created by the television propaganda and etc. And this was a shame for these people in this country. 2018, now we should catch on.
But we're thankful to all of this because a lot of people really saw what is going on.
But there is no returning back. There is no going back anymore. So that we can say for sure, and that's one great circumstance.
Hayk, I have a question about yourself. Do you apply to politics in your personal life?
What do you mean?
I knew it was coming.
Life is, well, I understood the question. Life is politics, right?
Okay.
We all are
We
all are politicians if we are not stupid. Mm-hmm. If we are stupid, we're not politicians. Even though there are stupid politicians, a lot of them. Mm-hmm. We saw a lot of them these days. We saw during the voting of the May 1st, when almost 50 people, or 29, 30, whatever, came out and spoke nonsense and disgraced themselves and discredited and made themselves the most hated people in this country. Anyway,
but
if you don't use, if you personal life, you mean like
he's being one now.
Yeah. This is what
no.
it's doing.
Well, if you're referring to women, no, I don't.
Do you ever turn off your analytical brain and just?
Yeah, sometimes I'm not. I'm turning it off purposefully. Doesn't work well. Doesn't yield.
Sometimes is the key word.
Yeah, doesn't yield great results.
Okay.
But yeah, usually, well, I'll be very frank with you. I'm trying to be very frank with women. And in politics as well, by the way, I'm trying to be very frank. I don't fake myself, because fake politics and fake political analysis is what those political analysts and scientists, so-called scientists, who are to this day silent, starting from the days of the beginning of the revolution. They did that, and that's how they lost. I came up from a different perspective, and I pursued a different path, and I stayed true to myself. So I'm trying to do the same thing in my personal private life. If you fake yourself and you get exposed, that's a recipe for a disaster. So you better be. And by the way, America is a very interesting place in this term. Lying is punished so harshly throughout the life and state system in the States that if you're not stupid and you have brains, you realize that lying even in small things will never benefit you. It's going to hurt you. So it gets into your system. You start speaking the truth. I always prefer to be truthful rather than lying. And the same thing, I mean, speaking about politics, people think it's the art of lying. It is not. Is that a lot of liars are doing politics.
Oh.
That doesn't
Nice.
mean that it's a dirty
Well put.
business. It doesn't mean that it's a dirty business. So I understand your question, and I would turn it into something else. I would reply that I'm not employing politics in my private or personal life, neither in good nor in bad sense. I'm just trying to be truthful and honest, and that's very crucial.
Thank you. And now I'm going to be honest with you. We have an advertisement break.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. We have another 10 minutes to go with a wonderful and smart person, Hayk Martirosyan.
Աղջիրենա, ոնց ես։
Ina, I thought this was an English-speaking show.
Բայ խայտարակ եղա, are we on air?
Yes. Every Friday night.
Homesick at home.
Yes, this is Homesick at Home, and we're sad because we have only 10 minutes to go. And we have decided to ask fast questions to get fast answers, if this is possible, of course. We would enjoy you for another 1 hour, I think. That's for sure,
Thank
right,
you.
Elena Can?
Maybe even more.
We never had such a non-boring politician ever.
Well, I hope none of our past guests are listening
Yeah,
right now.
well, yeah, but I mean in general. Okay, hi John. Since our show is called Homesick at Home, and this is one of the standard questions that we're asking. That
Are we doing standard questions
no,
tonight?
only one because
Okay.
because this is our show. What is home to you?
Where is home? Or
What is home?
home is a safe place where you go, you rest, you feel sheltered, you feel secure, where you can sleep actually good, get a good night's sleep, where you feel at peace, or you should feel at peace. Not everybody feels at peace at home, but I do, and I'm lucky in that sense.
Where is your home?
Well, I have two homes.
So this show is about you.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Homesick at Home.
Yeah, I have two homes, and when I'm in one, I miss the other one. When I'm in the other one, I miss the other one. So it's, I mean, you know, the name says it all.
I know
Yeah.
how it feels. I think all of us here know. Did your perception of home change after what happened?
No, of course not. Of course not. I mean, listen, I was born here. I am an Armenian by ethnicity. And I will die an Armenian, and I love Armenia.
Will you die in Armenia?
I don't know. Whatever God decides. I spend some time almost each year in Armenia, and if it happens in Armenia, it happens in Armenia. Not up to me to decide. But so no, how could something change? I just got happier that a life dream was fulfilled. That this country is finally gonna be a country, not a territory governed by a bunch of crooks, but a country that deserves and gets respect. That's what changed. Otherwise, my feelings towards this country or towards these people, no, absolutely not. I was born here, and I am an Armenian by ethnicity again. So, do you think I didn't love Armenia or I didn't love Armenians? Of course not. I always laughed, and the revolution couldn't make it more or less. But one difference, one thing that I like to talk about, I was really touched when young people would approach me in the streets and tell me, like 17, 18-year-old people would tell me they're following me, they're reading me, they would thank, they were so politically active. They were blocking the streets, they were protesting with so much devotion. It was really unbelievable. So I really deeply fell in love with the society. I always loved the people, the nation, the ethnicity, but I fell in love with the society for the first time because the society was asleep for so many years. I had no appreciation for the society. Society and people are different, and nation are different things. So I was amazed to see this youth, and that's what changed in me. Now I feel, I get emotional when I remember those faces and those kids, actually.
True. And we have like 3 minutes to go, and can I ask the last question, because it will be like a conclusion to our show. Thank you, Renajan, and we'll talk about it later. Okay, Armenians made history with the Velvet Revolution, with no victims, no blood. What kind of sense of responsibility should this give us as citizens in our day-to-day life? And this would be your concluding
I guess
speech.
the people should be more involved in politics, should be more demanding in the life of this country, should be having sense of ownership of the country, of their own lives. They shouldn't delegate the management of their lives to people who might mismanage it. They should take the matters in their hands in a legal way, in a legal sense, and be more active. From now on, vote responsibly. Vote for responsible politicians and demand from them. I guess that's the biggest revolution that already happened. And that's the revolution in the minds and hearts and souls and conscience of the people. That is the most important revolution that has happened.
Oh, thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Hayk, John.
Thank you very much.
It was Hayk Martirosyan in our studio. We had an amazing show and we enjoyed it really. And if you missed it, oops. But yeah, you still have a chance
Yeah,
to
we
to
will
catch
share
up.
the link. Don't worry about it. Don't listen to it.
Okay, we will. We will share this episode on our official page, on our website, www.radiovan.fm, also our Facebook page. And of course, feel free to like, join, and follow not only Radio Van page, but also Hayk Martirosyan.
Thank you.
Stay safe, have a great Friday and an amazing weekend. Love to everyone.
Good night.